Do you think that most people would say that teenage beauty pageants are a good idea?
Oh yeah, sure. I know what some of your big city no-bra wearing hairy-legged women livers might say. They might say that a pageant is old-fashioned and demeaning to the girls.
What's sick is women dressing like men.
You betcha, Iris. No, I think you boys are going to find something a little bit different here in Montrose. For one thing, we're all God-fearing folk. Every last one of us. And you will not find a back room in our video store. No, that filth is better left to the Sin Cities.
A modern day remake of Matthew Vaughn's Lay a Kick. A Coen brothers end up with Timothy Chalamet.
A Citizen Kane prequel, a Midnight Cowboy sequel. Alvin and the Chipmunks deserve another squeakquel.
There's so many new ways to revisit sideways, but a graphic novel is how we choose to update.
But we still hold fast, you can't change the past on the Ruined Childhoods podcast.
Greetings, Starfighters, Juicy Lucy's, and Hot Dish Tater Totters. This is Ruined Childhoods, and we are covering one movie for each United State. Last week, we ventured out to Michigan to discuss Anatomy of a Murder, and this time we're in the North Star State, aka the land of 10,000 lakes. This is the 32nd state of the Union, and it is known for its cold climate, its own brand of being nice, and music sensation Prince. Other notable entertainers from this state are Lonnie Anderson, Louis Anderson, and Richard Dean. You guessed it, Anderson. Its capital is St. Paul, Butterfly is monarch, and flower is the pink and white lady's slipper. That's right, we're in Minnesota talking about the 1999 mockumentary Drop Dead Gorgeous. Dan, we had a lot of movies to pick from for Minnesota. Do you have a favorite Minnesota movie?
You know, John, you asked me that, and the first place my brain goes is there anything I could say other than Fargo? For me, personally, Fargo, I've got to go with Fargo, which ironically
Bemidji.
Fargo is not a city in Minnesota.
Right. Oh, we got Bemidji. What are some of the other towns? Brainerd. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Brainerd is a big one.
Yeah. So that it's got to be Fargo. What's yours?
You know, Fargo is. Yeah, I wasn't even thinking Fargo. I think that because it's called Fargo, my mind doesn't immediately go to Minnesota, even though, of course, it's like 90% set in Minnesota. And that's a good one. I really liked, obviously Purple Rain is great, but I really liked Young Adult because Minneapolis is a big part of the movie's DNA. You know, it's somebody who's coming
Sin
from
cities.
Yeah, well, the Minneapple. I love when they call it the Minneapple because she's coming from New York, and it's very much coming back to your hometown in suburban Minneapolis, and I don't know. I felt like that one kind of gave me a good sense of like true Minneapolis area culture, because I feel like in a lot of other Minnesota movies, you kind of get more of a caricature. In Fargo, a little bit, I think that when you get to the smaller towns, Drop Dead Gorgeous, definitely one of them. The movie Airborne, which is a personal favorite of mine, featuring the, wait a second, it's Edie McClurg, and is her husband also in Elvira, Mistress of the Dark? Now I've got to look that up. I want to say that he's the like motel, the husband
of the Oh, that guy was in a lot. That guy was in. If Edie McClurg was in it, chances are that guy was in it. I don't remember his name, but all right, it's a cross episode mystery.
Uncle Lewis, Patrick Thomas O'Brien.
Oh yeah,
That might not have been him. Oh, that dude worked. He was in The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. Interesting. No, he was not in Elvira. But a very similar type of vibe to the guy in Elvira.
Got it. That's, so people have a, reference point there.
Of course, because everybody's seen Elvira, Mistress of the Dark.
Oh yeah, no, of course, yeah. No, it's
because
part of the
you watched it because of this podcast, of course. I think most people will probably know this guy as being one of the teachers on Saved by the Bell. But anyway, I digress.
Got it.
We're not talking about it.
I don't remember. Yeah.
But Airborne, another one where somebody, is coming in from out of state, maybe a more a part of the country where they maybe consider themselves in a different league than Minnesota, and then have to experience Minnesota life, and an Airborne falls right into it with a new culture, including Jack Black in one of his first roles.
Got it. Yeah. Oh, sounds good. What year was Airborne? Was that
Airborne?
I feel like that's a 93 or so.
93, exactly 93.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, sometimes.
Shane McDermott is the star of that movie. Seth Green plays his cousin Wiley.
I thought I remembered Seth Green being in that. And I've never seen it, but I just remember like Seth Green being on like the VHS cover, like kind of popping out on like the lower left-hand corner, like looking rad.
I'm going to just look at the
Are you going to look?
Right
are
now.
You going to see it? How close?
He is in the. No, he's not in the bottom left. No,
is he somewhere on the VHS cover of?
He is not. We have 2 Shane McDermotts, and then we have, or is that 4 Shane McDermotts rollerblading
on the cover alone?
On the cover alone, and then his love interest, whose name escapes me.
That's unfortunate.
That is unfortunate.
All right.
But if we're talking about actors and their early on-screen performances, great opportunity to talk about Amy Adams.
Amy Adams in this movie in Drop Dead Gorgeous is fantastic. And I would, and by the way, so Drop Dead Gorgeous, especially after rewatching it, I would definitely place among my favorite Minnesota movies. But also, before we go into the land of synopsis, I did, as I was watching it, I was like, you know what? I need a credibility check here. Let me look into who wrote this. And yes, Lona Williams, I think, because there's Lona.
Okay.
Who is from Rosemont, Minnesota, not Mount Rose, Minnesota, where Drop Dead Gorgeous is set, and who was Minnesota's junior miss in 1985, and then was the runner-up in America's junior miss, and was, in a number of pageants. And so grew up in Minnesota, did the local pageant circuit. So I'm like, okay,
but fortunately though, this movie is not autobiographical.
Correct. Not autobiographical, but I feel like when you're satirizing something, you need to have a certain amount of familiarity with it.
Yeah.
I mean, to do that with credibility, especially with the shots that they take in this, because it is none too subtle. And I know that we'll talk about both how that's a detriment and also works in its favor at different times, and also kind of how to what extent it works.
Yeah,
but definitely put this in my top minutes. I guess I think more of Purple Rain, and I know it's set in Minnesota, and there's Purify Yourself in the Waters of Lake Minnetonka, all that. But to me, it's kind of like that story couldn't take place anywhere, because I feel like that story feels like that story needs to take place in a mini Apple, so to speak. And by the way, back to young adult, one of my
city,
favorite,
but not a major city. Go on.
Right. Like but it could be Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Like if Flashdance hadn't been already in Pittsburgh, it could be Pittsburgh. It could be Galveston. I don't know. It could be. I don't know. I don't know why Galveston jumped into my mind, but you get the point. It could be Little Rock. Hey, couldn't be New York. Couldn't be L.A. Probably not Chicago. Maybe Chicago.
Yeah, I don't know. But you're gonna say something.
I sure was.
You're gonna say something about why you like young adult.
Oh yeah, young adult. Charlize Theron, possibly my favorite performance of hers. Definitely my top 3, and that's saying something, because especially from Monster on, it was kind of like a shift for her in her career, and both both like, reaching the heights of performances in movies like Monster and Young Adult, where she's excellent. North Country is one that's really underrated, but she's magnificent in that. But also as Furiosa in Mad Max Fury Road.
Definitely, yeah.
It is incredible and magnetic. But Young Adult, I felt was a film that also, like, as someone who's enjoyed some of Jason Reitman's work very much, some more than others, this one is definitely up there for me in his filmography.
Was this
and
one,
Diablo Cody as well?
I was gonna say, was it written by Diablo Cody? Yeah.
Yes, and it's and I have seen neither Lisa Frankenstein nor Jennifer's Body yet. I will do my due diligence on that.
Yeah, I forget that she did Jennifer's Body.
But yeah, I wasn't sold on Diablo Cody by Juno. It was Young Adult that sold me on Diablo Cody.
Yeah, Young Adult, fantastic. I've always been a Charlize Theron fan. I mean, even the early work, That Thing You Do, so good.
Oh, Devil's Advocate.
Hell, even Reindeer Games, I enjoy.
Reindeer, all that. No. I like that Charlize Theron, but then after she went and played Eileen Wuornos, she discovered this, oh my God, yes. I will devour every role that comes my way now. And
you know what movie I love her in? The Long Shot.
The Long Shot.
It came out maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
Yes, with Seth Rogen. Yes. Oh, that one's magnificent.
It's fantastic. She's great.
It's a lot of fun.
Bob Odenkirk is a lot of fun in it.
As I was saying, magnificent. I was like, I might have oversold that a little bit, but it has
higher rewatch quality. Also features June and Raphael, Kurt Brownohler, one of the hosts of the Bananas podcast.
Facts. O'Shea Jackson.
O'Shea Jackson's fantastic. Yeah.
I like his character in it, and I like the way he pronounces the word pamplemousse.
Yeah, he's fun. But let's get more into Drop Dead Gorgeous. Should we do a synopsis and then really start getting into it?
Let's get this pageant started here.
All right, this is gonna have spoilers in it because I felt like there's really no way to give a full synopsis without because the movie ends but then keeps going.
Yes. But yes, but also it's been 25 years. We are near on a quarter of a century since the release of this film.
Absolutely. All right, here we go. If you are a teenage girl in Mount Rose, Minnesota, there is no greater accomplishment than being crowned Sarah Rose Cosmetics American Teen Princess. For pure-hearted and hard-working Amber Atkins, participating in the pageant is one way she can follow the same path as her hero, Diane Sawyer. But for Amber, winning is a stretch only because she's competing against Becky Ann Lehman, the daughter of the pageant's organizer, Gladys, who will stop at nothing to make her daughter win and follow in her own footsteps as an American Teen Princess pageant winner. And the stakes are even higher after Amber becomes the target of a number of murder attempts. Also in the pageant, we have athletic Tammy, who dies in a mysterious Thresher explosion, New York-loving Lisa, sexually advanced cheerleader Leslie, theater nerd Michelle, dog-loving Tess, quote, Asian American, unquote, Molly, and ASL enthusiast Janelle. Amber is supported by her hairdresser single mother Annette and family friend Loretta, who believed she would win if not for the Lehman family owning the town. As the pageant prep continues, there are more and more attempts on Amber's life and potentially damaging issues with her pageant prep. And even though she is the clear winner, Amber gets second place in the obviously rigged judging in Becky Ann's favor. But the beauty pageant gods had something else in mind after Becky Ann's swan float at the post-pageant parade explodes, resulting in Amber taking the charred crown, advancing her to the state-level competition at the Howard Johnson by the airport. And the gods must have their eyes on Amber, as she is the only contestant who isn't put out of commission due to a shellfish-related salmonella dysentery outbreak, advancing Amber by default to the national competition. But when the 50 contestants arrive at the Sarah Rose building in Lincoln, Alabama, they learn that the company has suddenly shuttered, leaving every contestant except Amber in a blind rage. But all's well that ends well when we find out that Amber gets to live out her dream of being a news anchor after another Gladys-related attempt to come out on top. Oh, man. That was a lot to get through.
Well, this movie is a wild ride, man.
Yeah. Just kind of knocking out the cast. We had Kirsten Dunst as Amber, Ellen Barkin as her mom, Annette, Allison Janney as their family friend Loretta, chef's kiss. Denise Richard is Becky Ann, Kirstie Alley is her mom Gladys, Sam McMurray from Raising Arizona, Freaks and Geeks is Becky Ann's father. Then we've got Brittany Murphy, Amy Adams, Laurie Sinclair, Shannon Nelson, amongst others as other pageant entrants. Alexandra Holden is the previous year's pageant winner. It's a really fascinating cast. We have Matt Malloy, Mike McShane, Lana Williams as one of the judges.
Yep. We
have Will Sasso, who we'll get to later. Yes, Nora Dunn, absolutely, and Mo Gaffney as from the state pageant. Adam West with a cameo as himself.
Adam West, yep.
Yeah. And Tom Lennon as the kind of documentarian.
Right. Yes, absolutely. You never see him, but you know that voice.
You know the voice. It's a much more subdued Tom Lennon.
Right. I don't.
Creeping in the background.
I certainly didn't realize. I feel like since the last time I saw this movie, I've watched a lot more with Tom Lennon. Yeah. So watching it this time. Oh yeah, and of course, I'm looking at the cast list because I'm looking at who's playing other, because there's other character actors that pop up, like the choreographer, the woman who plays the dance teacher, the one who just sits there and smokes. And I mean, everyone, it was like watching Cold Turkey again. Everybody's smoking. Oh my goodness.
Bob Newhart would be pleased.
But that I also was part like of the commentary.
Yeah, I think that, and especially, since, the writer who is definitely involved in production because she's also in it, that's where she's from, essentially. It's a fictionalized version, but it definitely goes through lengths to capture the vibe of small town Minnesota. They have a lot of the classic like Minnesota cuisine that comes in, and
bars,
yeah, Jello salads, things like that.
Jello salads.
So there's definitely a lot that is trying to capture that small town Minnesota vibe. Dan, I made a list. I made two lists. What I liked about it and what I didn't like about it. And I'd like to know, what are the things that you really liked about this movie?
Okay. First of all, I really like the cast. I really like the casting of the roles. I think Kirstie Alley nails it. It is, kind of funny watching her playing this like ultra conservative. She's Sarah Palin, basically.
Yeah.
Pre Sarah Palin. And just kind of like knowing where Kirstie Alley ended up going in the years following.
A little too much like her character in this.
Yeah, but it was, but I felt like in terms of her, like her performance is so comedic and so wonderful. She nails it. Ellen Barkin is
Ellen Barkin,
who we've spoken about recently with
The
Big Easy, and we talked about humor in The Big Easy, but she's so great at comedy, and she's such an underrated comedian. And I think of again the movie Switch, which involves a lot of physical comedy on her part, and a lot of just inhabiting a character, which she does so brilliantly here. And of course, you did the chef's kiss for Allison Janney, well deserved, because she's amazing.
Steals the scenes that she's in.
I was so excited because one of my favorite moments is that towards the end where she's on TV and Ellen Barkin's watching them, and she shouts out, "I got some."
I know.
It turns out was the first ad lib she ever did on film.
Oh, really?
That's the only thing she ad libbed in this was that line, but she had not had experience with improv. And I was just like, that is why she is a gift. She's a gift to us. So I like the casting. Brittany Murphy, pour one out. Belatedly, but and Amy Adams goes for it. I think this is like Denise Richards at her best. I think this is.
Yeah, I really liked her in Starship Troopers.
Yes, she's great in Starship Troopers. I felt like this was something different for her, where she showed potential to do more than what she had been doing, and that includes in the same year. I think she was in the James Bond movie.
Was she? Like, I forgot about that.
Dr. Christmas. Yeah. And like thinking about that, and I was like, you know what? Okay. It was poorly written and I did not enjoy her as in that role, but I also felt like it was held against her that she was like young and attractive and was playing a nuclear physicist. Like, not that she didn't necessarily fit that role. But like, I think she kind of got unfairly held against her.
Yeah,
in the critique.
Whereas
her
don't
poor
really
acting would have been enough.
Yeah, I don't really remember that role, but I just know that in the subsequent years, once we're getting into the 2000s,
the Charlie Sheen.
Yeah, it's like the decisions being made, and who knows what the story is, but like, I don't know. She had a lot of potential that didn't get met.
Right. I mean, Starship Troopers, Wild Things,
yeah,
and Drop Dead Gorgeous. But I really like watching this. I thought the casting of her as Kirstie Alley's daughter, and Sam McMurray is so good in those roles, blowhards, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he's so offensive in this, but again, it is that kind of like offensiveness is it does feel like.
Right now, I want to focus on the positive, and then I want to move to the negative.
So yes, so casting, I think use of the mockumentary format at a time. Like you in the rearview mirror, you had Spinal Tap, you had Waiting for Guffman, and I think there was like something else that like Robert Altman did for HBO that was kind of mockumentary.
Well,
it was before. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say this was it was before A Mighty Wind, but post Waiting for Guffman. Yeah, it definitely draws a lot from those, Rob
it's
Reiner,
pre-Best in Show.
It's pre-Best in Show, but barely though.
By a year.
Yeah.
By a year. So I appreciate that. And then I wrote down when I was watching it, I have not been writing down like lines from movies as I've been watching them in a long time. I wrote so many lines down, so many jokes. Like, and it was like there was no missed opportunity. The joke of as they're coming up, as they're in the pageant, and everybody has the thing on, all the girls have things on their heads, why they're proud to be an American
things.
Yeah, right. The patriotic thing, of course, because it was funny how as Kirstie Alley's character is reciting all of the past pageant themes, and it's like proud to be an American. I was like, please say "Make America Great Again," please.
There was when they had those things on their head, there was something. I think it was Denise Richards who says like, because she had Mount Rushmore on her head, and she made a comment about making America great. This is going to make America great, and I was just like, oh,
yes. But the one where I had to where I just stopped and I was like, oh, no way, was Molly.
The Asian American
was adopted by
who is white.
We don't right. Yes,
adopted 3 years prior.
Caucasian.
Yeah,
adopted. Yeah, right. By are we told where they're from?
We are not.
No.
Yeah.
But the fact that she's got a nuclear power plant and what did she say? Atomic energy or nuclear power makes me proud to be Asian American.
Yeah.
The implications of that joke are so wrong.
It's dark.
Oh my
it's
God.
Dark.
Oh my. There's so many things that I was like, oh my God, I can't believe they went there. But I loved it. The joke, Tammy riding the tractor because the vibrations helped her think, and she's like, Tammy only smoked after a good drive.
Yeah. Just real quick, just looking at the cast, there is the one character who plays Tina, who is the biological daughter of the Howard family, which is the Asian immigrants. The actor who plays her is Japanese, so and it looks like, I think that some of these names seem to me like they are Japanese names, just looking at the actors.
And it feels like the accents that they are doing, which does not fall under the things I like category necessarily.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute.
Right. Well, also, I do think that you mentioned Tina, their biological daughter, who I think is kind of like the glue that keeps that joke from just absolutely crashing.
That is maybe the one character in this movie that has any sense of decency.
Well, right, and you need.
I'm sorry. Aside from Amber.
Well, aside from Amber and
Brittany Murphy's character. Okay, so
Brittany Murphy's character is a hero in this. So I would say that's I like the setups of things.
Yeah.
There's a lot that I like, and I liked that it went for it, even in some, not all, of the uncomfortable moments.
Yeah. So my list of what I liked, there are definitely some parallels with yours. The "I got some" line is the one line that I wrote down. There were a lot of good lines, but that one was specifically one where I cracked up.
I'm sorry to interrupt, John. If I can interject, but from that same scene before the "I got some" line, as everyone is vomiting and you see Allison Janney and the bartender come out of the hotel room and she sees everyone vomiting and says, "Oh my God, do you think they hurt us?" Yeah. That one too.
Yeah. Right. Because what does that imply? There was a moment though when there's the TV newscast about the dysentery outbreak, and you see a shot of Allison Janney over there, and she says something, and I couldn't make out what it said, but I rewound because I was like, whatever she's saying is great, and I don't have to even know what the words are to know that it's hilarious and that she's the best. That's the sign of just a great character and the right person pulling it off.
Oh,
when you just know, uh-oh, here they come. What are they going to say?
Well, and also watching it now back at the time, you're just like, oh my God, she's
who's
hilarious.
This lady?
Now, well, and now you're like, oh, that's Allison Janney's in this movie and that's her character. Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah.
So I'm going to shut my mouth. Go on.
Okay. So one of the things that I liked also, and this is also just because we're watching this in 2024, is the Soylent Green monologue, in which
I have that written
the
down.
year gets a shout out.
Yes.
Yeah, there's the theater girl who is in the pageant, and she's doing the monologue, trying to choose between Othello and Soylent Green. Her own version of Soylent Green, something like that. But
something like that. I mean, she seems to do all of Soylent Green because she starts at the beginning of the movie, and finishes at the end.
Right. She says it's like like her own version of it. Yeah. So that's wonderful. This is a joke that is very 90s. Was the whole the documentary crew meeting or seeing the crew from the show Cops, because there's the Cops crew that comes in, and jokes about the show Cops, very late 90s, and I felt like it was very Michael Patrick Jan and a little statey to be having the, like, you know, intermingling between the documentary crew and the Cops crew. And personally, I feel like, and maybe this is the fact that it's 25 years later, but it's just like jokes about the show Cops. It's just like, come on, like, can we not do that? I don't know, but I did like that moment where those two crews see each other. The two guys know each other.
Yeah. Well, and which is also pretty, like, believable.
Oh yeah, it's true. I mean, the show Cops, it's riddled with problems. It's completely bogus. It's
I mean, at least they're arresting white people in this one, so.
Oof, yeah. One of the other things that I loved is that, you know, it's a comedic platform for women, and the men in it, such as, you know, Becky Ann's father, is just like a doofus. There's, you know, every man is problematic in some way, but the women are, in a lot of ways, you know, the heroes. There's, you know, Kirsten Dunst, even Amy Adams, who's just like a very, you know, a very positive person. Brittany Murphy's character is just like such a pure-hearted person. And then, of course, Ellen Barkin and Allison Janney's characters. Even though when we first meet Ellen Barkin, she's kind of like, you know, you get more of a trashy sense from her. And it's just like, we could do a little bit better with that. And I kind of want to move on, and I'll start this time with the things that irked me about this. And I'm going to kind of end with the biggest offense of all. So I didn't feel like a lot of the characters were very clever. And when I say that, I mean, I don't know, the parents of the Asian American family, you know, that thing. It seemed like a lot of the jokes in the, like, were designed to the characters are designed to have like punching down jokes, and there was opportunity to make them clever, and there were elements of that, but it just wasn't. It didn't really vibe for me. A lot of the jokes I felt were very obvious and cheap and punched down. I did not like eating disorder jokes. There's the winner from the previous year who is in the hospital with anorexia, and there's just joke after joke at the expense of an eating disorder. Pedophilia jokes, I did not like at all. John Doe, spelled D-O-U-G-H, one of the judges. And it's like, there's a way to do that that's better, but they didn't do it that way. There's a way to do it where you're maybe questioning, just like, is this guy in this just because he's kind of a pervert? But when he starts talking about the young girls and everything, it's like, and he has a video camera.
Can I jump in? Can I?
Please. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, you know, I'm definitely hearing we have a lot of parallels, and there's some other things I'll come back to, but I feel like this is worth jumping in because you mentioned, like, okay, there's a way to do that, because yes, the whole idea of a middle-aged man judging and like having to really like look at teenage girl, which I mean goes into the larger issue of like beauty pageants and what they are, you know, like how they are executed, and you know that's just much bigger
and like, just real quick and you know, of course, you know, we've heard Donald Trump talk about how in the pageants that he's run, where these girls in some cases are likely under 18, you know, he talks about, you know, you're running the show, so you can go back and watch them change, and it's just like he talks about it like it's his God-given right to be able to do that. Go on.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that if you're going to do a movie though about pageants, there's a way to have a character who is not a pedophile, and I think that this movie does tell you enough to, I mean, yes, John, like, he is a pedophile.
Yeah.
Yes. So there's a way to have it where somebody is really afraid of coming across that way.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
Like, and constantly putting because they're so afraid, and like they're like, look, I'm in this, this was, however
that's
like,
the way to do it.
Okay. Got it. Okay.
That's what to do it. Where somebody is very clearly, not in it for those purposes, but is so aware of how it might look that he's so nervous about somebody thinking that he has, is in it for the wrong reasons.
And which, this might be a bit cart before the horse here, but if you were to do something like this again today, I feel like that character would also make a lot of sense, especially being, in the like woke generation. But yeah. I don't think that makes a difference. I absolutely, it could have been done that way then.
100%. One other thing that I feel like worked better in 1999 than it really does now are the jokes about Brittany Murphy's character's brother, which I thought were funny. And, as we're going on, it's like, oh, well, he's clearly gay. And then when she kind of outs him to their parents at the end, it's like, all right, we would handle this differently now. Because it's like gay equals bad in the sense of that delivery. Clearly, she loves her brother. She loves him.
Right.
Yeah.
But she's out. First of all, she's outing him without his consent and doing that in a manner that is like, here's bad news for you.
Yeah.
Like you just said, it's shown as a negative. So yeah, that's again on.
Yeah.
on
and that's where I feel like some of the jokes were like late 90s, obvious punching down type things.
Low hanging fruit.
Yeah. Where it's just like different from whatever is not the tradition is bad. And that's where we get to the biggest offender of this movie are jokes about characters with intellectual disabilities and repeatedly calling people the R word.
Yeah. Which if anybody needs convincing, it is not hard to, as you're listening to that dialogue, replace it with the N-word and like it used in the exact same context, in the exact same way. It is like worse than punching down. Yeah.
And Will Sasso's character should not have been part of it. He plays somebody with an intellectual disability. It is an unnamed intellectual disability because I don't think that it exists in reality.
No. And there was no, the goal, the purpose of this was not to accurately represent any specific disability, but it was just to have fun at the expense of people with intellectual disabilities.
If they were to do something differently and still have a character who maybe has some of those qualities, not all of them for sure, it takes place in small town Minnesota. Maybe they got kicked by a donkey. We'll do National Lampoon's Vacation style. Like, maybe there's some sort of reason why perhaps there is a different quality to this character, but to make it be at the expense of people with intellectual disabilities. I mean, in the other case, I guess we're talking about traumatic brain injury, but I think that it's also about the other characters and the way that they connect with that particular character.
With that, exactly, because he's just targeted by everybody. Nobody shows him kindness in the movie. The closest maybe being his brother, but
you know what? I have a revision to this. So Will Sasso plays Mike McShane, plays like the owner of the hardware store in town, who's one of the judges, and his son is Will Sasso's character.
His brother.
Is it his brother?
His brother.
Okay. Yeah. So what I'm thinking is, instead of making it his brother, make it a child. Like, just make it a child. Make it a precocious, weird child who's doing inappropriate things all the time.
Well, A League of Their Own was Stillwell. In A League of Their Own.
Absolutely. Yeah, the frustrating little kid. Because I think that the only thing that this character, I guess, contributes to the story is that he confirms the rigging of the judging, where he's just like, oh, I know who wins. And it's like, you make that little kid, it's instantly believable and 1,000% less problematic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There you go. That's your, that's how you solve that. And that could have been done then, but this was the option.
And also this is 1 year after There's Something About Mary. Which we talked about a few episodes ago. Which perhaps because I did read that Will Sasso's character was a later addition. It might have even been like a reshoot kind of a thing, where allegedly there was an issue from like the studio where the male characters are like, unrelatable or something. And so they added in this other character. And it's
I read that and I was so confused.
I was confused by it too, but it's like, all right, well, if there's any truth behind this, then it's like, I could see them being like, oh, this movie, There's Something About Mary, just came out. It has this character in it. Do something like that. And so they just went, hard on that direction.
Well, I also, when I read that, I was like, are they trying to make Mike McShane's character more sympathetic? What are they trying to do exactly?
Mike McShane, by the way, I loved him on Whose Line Is It Anyway? He's,
the old Friar Tuck and Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
He was great in Prince of Thieves.
Not too many people can claim that.
Yeah, I think that he's maybe one of the only that was good in Prince of Thieves. But
Alan Rickman, Michael Wincott.
Oh, Alan Rickman's great. Yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, we don't have to really say much more about that, but
no,
we had to.
We did. It's done. We're past it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's, like I said, there's a lot to like about this movie. I felt like because I had seen it, back when it was first maybe on home video. I don't think I saw it in the theater. And seeing it again now, there's definitely a lot that I picked up on where it was just like, oh, it's smart how they did that. Like, when it shows Becky Ann at the gun range and you like cut to the shot of like where she on the target, where it's like somebody, like a person's silhouette, and like you see where it is, it's all in the exact same spot where that kid Brett, he got shot in the head after he turns her down to go on a date. So
right, but we also have its
yeah. Oh, no, it was just not something that I picked up on, I think, the first time, but like watching it closer, I was just like, ooh, that was smart how they cut to that shot where it's just like, oh, that's the exact same spot that this guy gets shot in the head. Yeah.
Well, and to add to that, they also plant the seeds because all of her guns were given to her by her mother, and who taught her to shoot? Her mom.
Well, it doesn't shy away from the fact, like it's not trying to hide the fact that they're the ones that are killing these people.
Oh, no, no. But do you think Becky is all... Because do we think Becky was also involved, or it was all Gladys?
Well, Brett getting killed has nothing to do with the pageant. It's just that he
but I wonder if what if there's some deleted scene where like Becky goes home and is upset?
Oh, I don't know. I mean,
it's
clear that she's the one that killed him. I don't know.
I think I assumed it was all Gladys, but no, now that you mention it, there's really nothing that suggests that wasn't Becky who killed Brett.
No, they are just evil people.
Yeah.
And that's the way that they live their lives. I do wish that there was some element of there's people dying. We should probably have somebody investigating this while this is going on. You know what? And I'm going to go, okay, I'm going to launch into it. My idea for bringing this back is a remake. It's a remake that it ends at the end of the local pageant. Or perhaps, we have the swan float blowing up or something like that. But it ends there. It doesn't go forward.
So it ends at its natural end.
It ends at, it doesn't keep
doesn't-
on going more and more and more. But that lets you spend more time during this part of time where there's these deaths going on, the trailer exploding, the light falling on the girl's head and everything. All these things that are like meant to be targets for Kirsten Dunst's character. And at the same time that this is going on, there is somebody investigating what's happening. And that kind of adds along to it. And in a way, it kind of blends it with like miscongeniality, where it's like there's something going on that's fishy. Well, there's supposed to be an explosion at this pageant, I think was miscongeniality, and she's there undercover. So it's kind of like we're kind of following the path of this pageant, but we get to spend more time with the characters. We get to meet some other characters. We have room for other characters. We don't necessarily need to be focusing on a lot of the more minor, pageant entrants and things like that.
And we can also like lose all of the, all of the Will Sasso jokes.
Yes. Also, well, that's because in this case, if you're going to have that kind of character, it's going to be a child.
Right.
We fixed that.
Yeah.
But also, I wouldn't make it a mockumentary. I feel like that style, the documentary style, has been done so much now. Even shows like Modern Family or The Office or Parks and Rec, like we're kind of past that. And, that was,
jury duty.
But that is real. Jury duty is real because the actors are actors in the show.
So it's okay, right. Okay, it's real because the audience knows that they're all actors and that the one guy isn't an actor. Got it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Which, Dan, you got to watch it if you haven't watched it. It's amazing.
I watched the first couple of episodes, and it might be my favorite thing that I've seen James Marsden do.
James Marsden is perfect in it. Also, Ronald Gladden, shout out. You're the best person they could have possibly found for that show. But Dan, you got to watch it through to the end so you can see like the last episode. It's perfect.
I will.
Yeah. So, yes, I think that it's better served in maybe a more traditional type of storytelling fashion rather than the mockumentary, which I know that you said that you liked the mockumentary aspect of it. I didn't like it so much. It felt to me like it was not quite well done. And it just seemed like there was a lot of... I don't think that it served the actors in this very well. And, the way that it's done in Christopher Guest movies, it's a lot of improv in those. And they're not like mugging for the camera because a lot of them kind of come from a little bit more of a less traditional background. And I think that Kirstie Alley, for me, didn't work in this context. And I didn't like seeing her do the kind of interview thing and then kind of having the little moment where she like is checking out high school wrestlers, junk in their singlets and stuff. Yeah, that was just gross to me, and it felt like that wouldn't have been there if it was a more traditional storytelling thing. Because
low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Of the loom.
Yes. So, yeah, that's kind of where I'm thinking, because I love the whole small town beauty pageant thing. We also, since this movie, have had things like toddlers and tiaras and like a closer look at the pageant scene in kind of small town America, and there's a lot more to it, and I don't really know like pageant wise what's really happening in the country. I know that I live in Portland. I know that like anything that's happening around here is more about like community service, and has nothing to do with talent or formal wear.
Right. Yeah. No, I think the objectification aspect of pageants, especially in areas such as Portland or where I live in Seattle is I would not, having no knowledge whatsoever, I would say that aspect of it has been phased out.
Yeah.
And that you're, like you said, community service.
Right.
Advocacy.
But we are living in a bubble, and it's not that way everywhere.
In Mount Rose, Minnesota, it may, or Rosemount, the real place, it may very well still be the same. So before I go to my possible, what are we going to do here? Just a few more things that either I didn't like or that were like kind of a little bit more uncomfortable now. And by the way, there's so many other things that I do like that I'm thinking about now. That fact that one of the things Amber likes about working at the mortuary is that she can tap dance on the like tile floor.
Yeah.
And it doesn't bother anybody.
Didn't bother me.
That was funny. I thought that was funny. No, I'm saying like it didn't. Her tap dancing isn't going to wake anybody up.
No, I thought that there was everything about Kirsten Dunst's character and performance were so great. Yes. She is, especially with all the tap dancing, like when she's got the Walkman on and she's going down the road and like doing her tap dancing and stuff. It's just like, it looks good. And she looks so good doing it.
Right. Yeah. No, she's definitely all in on this. What I didn't like, and I agree with you, any of the humor from eating, like there is no humor in eating disorders. They're
correct.
Like, intellectual disabilities and eating disorders are not laughing matters. They are not things to make light of. And they are things that if somebody who's personally impacted by those sees that's actually going to be like unfunny, the opposite of funny in the negative.
Yeah.
So upsetting. And like with some of the jokes, like with when Sam McMurray in the, like, when he's in the furniture store and he's being offensive and anti-Semitic, it makes his character buffoon, and it's the film disapproving of him. It's the narrative showing him in a bad light. But like when you have, and then going back to Will Sasso's character, when you have a scene where it's the documentary crew is just recording his character whose overalls are stuck in the car door and like kids are taunting him, and a caption comes up and says it's the documentary crew is just there to document and not do anything. So that, to me, that's like, that is the film having a laugh at the expense of someone with an intellectual disability. And that's not like that's not their choice. We can have fun at the expense of Sam McMurray's character because he is choosing to be a bigot and a racist and an anti-Semite, and like so like that, it just isn't funny. And I probably laughed at it when I watched it. Again, I would have been a home video, but like early on, like not long after it was out. I don't remember seeing it in the theater, but certainly not long after it was available to watch at home. And I probably laughed then. I'm not laughing now. And and it's not. And by the way, this is like, you often hear like, oh, can't get away with that now. Well, this is not something to get away with. This is not something we should want to. Getting away with something is like doing something that you want to do and not getting in trouble. We should not want to do that, and neither now nor then. Correct. So and this is not something where I feel comfortable saying like, that was then, can't do that anymore. That doesn't work for me. And this movie proves, maybe more often than not, that it is better than that. And it does. there are clever moments. So
yeah,
it doesn't need that. It was eerie. And this is maybe not necessarily something that like I'm going to say was necessarily like bad, but just eerie in hindsight when Gladys ends up, with the gun.
Sure.
And a public, especially, I mean, God, like we're just now,
There's, but by the time this comes out, there might be another, and I hope that that's not true.
Yeah. But
it's
to see that, and also remembering this movie comes out in 1999, which in addition to just being an amazing movie year, was also the same year of the Columbine shooting.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like that. And that was a, different circumstance, but still kind of thinking about that and thinking like, you know what? They had time before this movie came out to maybe cut that out and consider that, your audience might be a little, sensitive to that. There were 3 months because this movie comes out on July 23rd.
Right.
And that happened on April 20th, 1999. So I felt like that perhaps could have been removed, but I would say otherwise, other than those points, I even thought like a lot of the other. Oh, and I would say like the portrayal of the presumably Japanese couple, right, and the fact that like their daughter was named Molly, I felt that was like an obvious like the accent, like stereotyping. So that that felt like it was that was a little like that maybe shouldn't have made it past the first couple of drafts of this script.
I think that you just mean like the movie naming her Molly so that it could be pronounced in a way that is offensive.
And it did feel like they were exaggerating they were leaning into the that they were maybe, and I will assume that they were directed to lean into the more stereotype, like, like the way I'm not going to, I'm not going to do an imitation.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, I felt like they still could have done that joke, but done it like, reworked it. And again, the fact that they also showed that they had a biological daughter, who was just kind of like living her life and doing her thing. And we're like, my parents are ridiculous. Yeah. I thought that was like good. As long as there's somebody pointing out and saying like, my parents are ridiculous and offensive.
Yes.
That was kind of, like I said, the glue keeping it from totally crashing.
Yeah. And, as we're talking about the Asian American family, we'll call them that, it made me think a little bit of the movie Licorice Pizza. Did you see Licorice Pizza?
Yes.
Yeah. And it made me think of John Michael Higgins' character. Do you remember the quality? So he has, I think that he has 2 different Japanese wives throughout the course of the movie. At least one. And so he kind of like is translating to his wife, but he's not speaking in Japanese. He's saying the words in English, but with a very heavy, offensive Japanese accent. And it made me think of that because, Licorice Pizza is my least favorite Paul Thomas Anderson movie. I felt like it made some decisions that just didn't work and were just like, what are you doing? And that was a big one for me that like really took me out of it, because it's like, what year are you making this joke in? I know that it takes place in a different year, but you're being made in, 2022.
Well, yeah. And it's also like, we saw John Michael Higgins do that 15 years earlier. And to me, like that, it was, and I know, like, I think that was a real person he was supposed to be playing.
It doesn't matter.
No. I know that. I'm just saying, like, yeah, but also casting John Michael Higgins. It's like you're used to, like, John Michael Higgins does characters. He comes in and does characters like he does in the Christopher Guest movies, and like he does in, like other things like The Breakup, which is, maybe not the best example that people have actually seen. But yeah, so he kind of has that, like, so as soon as he comes into it in a movie that, like, I'm supposed to be taking seriously, or I'm supposed to be taking like literally, yeah, that took me out of it. There were other things that took me out of it, but yeah, agreed. Least favorite, Paul Thomas Anderson. But back to Drop Dead Gorgeous.
Just one other thing on that. Another thing that bumped me on it is that Paul Thomas Anderson, when asked about that, didn't seem to, like, even consider the fact that it would be offensive, because he was putting it on the character. He was saying, like, oh yeah, well, you're just supposed to think this guy's an ass and then move on. And it's just like, no, because nobody would do that. It's a decision of the film. And that's that.
And
that's what we were talking about with Drop Dead Gorgeous. It's like, there are certain things where it's just like, okay, this is a character moment where you're just like, ugh, that character. But this is a moment you're just like, ugh, the movie. Because also, when it comes to the R word, it's one thing when a character that we don't like says it, versus a time when, like, Brittany Murphy says it.
Yep.
And it's like, that's just the movie saying, like, nope, this is just a word we're comfortable with using.
Right. And it comes, like, the Sam McMurray character is the only one who uses, like, the other slurs and derogatory terms that he uses, which is why that works. But yeah, I mean, this is a movie that is quite clear about where it stands on things. Yeah. And it is quite obvious. This is not a neutral observer. This is a movie that has an opinion about the people who live in this type of place, the people who do this type of thing. And regarding a movie like this, or like There's Something About Mary, with those types of representations and that R word, and this is going back to something that we were talking about earlier, but it's not a we couldn't get away with this now type of thing, but it's a shame on us for thinking this was okay then type of thing. This was not something to get away with. This is not something that should not have been done. Nope. It's in 1999, we probably didn't even think twice about it, and shame on us for that. Exactly. So, by the way, ironically, speaking of 1999, and of course we've talked about the year 1999 in movies before, but worth noting that Kirsten Dunst and Brittany Murphy were both having stellar years, and a movie that featuring Brittany Murphy that does treat eating disorders in a more serious and realistic manner, Girl Interrupted. Absolutely. Comes out the same year. So, all right, what would I do with this? Well, tell me. Oh, sorry. I have a question about your remake. Would you set it then, now, or another time? I don't think it matters necessarily when it is set. I think that the time period of the late 90s is a fun time period to set stuff in. The danger is always that it becomes too cartoonish, but that could be fun. I don't think that there really needs to be much of a difference in the way that they present themselves, other than the fact that Brittany Murphy might not be showing pictures in a picture frame. She'd be showing pictures on her phone. That might be the only difference. Oh, I mean, I would say you'd have a lot more like cyberbullying. Honestly, I was thinking about if you were to set it now, it would so easily become something like I feel like this would go so serious just because I seen what vengeful teenagers can do with social media. Right. But it isn't a vengeful teenager who's performing the wrongdoings in most cases. It's the mom. Well, right, but the mom. But again, this is like something I would see this character do, which again, you could maybe do this as a more like tongue-in-cheek thriller. This might be a great Diablo Cody project to have. And now I'm just spitballing, but to have it where Gladys creates a profile of
and catfishes and
and making it more. I would still keep it like tongue in cheek and do the comedy.
But the
thriller,
thing about Gladys though is that she's not subtle. She doesn't have a lot of foresight into things. The plans aren't elaborate. They're very much just like blow up the thresher that the girl is on, blow up the trailer, have a light fall on somebody's head.
She's
and
like
then
Serial
she
Mom.
Gun.
She's like Kathleen Turner in Serial Mom.
Her murders are all practical and probably pretty run and gun. They're not like she's been planning something for months kind of a person.
Well, no. I kind of feel like that might, if you were to remake it set today, that's something that character might do. Now that said, that's not where I would, that's not necessarily where I was thinking of going with this. I was thinking you could do a sequel. I don't feel that like that's the best way to go with this. It does have a cult following, so I imagine I imagine midnight screenings of this probably do pretty well around. I could see it becoming a fun little cult musical.
Oh, and maybe, for sure.
Perhaps, I mean, yes, I know we have Heathers the musical and we have Mean Girls the musical and Bring It On the musical, speaking of Kirsten Dunst, who actually says that in this movie.
Yes, she does.
I feel like it's the type of thing that almost I would want to see it done more of like off Broadway, like a real fun, campy, production where like you might even have like drag queens in it, kind of like doing the Golden Girls thing, but doing Drop Dead Gorgeous, the musical. I think I feel like there's, other than the fact that like making musicals based on movies from like that period of time is kind of overdone. It feels to me like it would be something fun to see if it was done right.
So Dan, in let's see, I'm trying to figure out where this is, but I'll just read the headline from a website called The Bungalower. Musical inspired by Drop Dead Gorgeous, now playing at Renaissance Theater in Ivanhoe Village. I'm trying to see, this is from 2022. Renaissance Theater Company.
Perfect.
Where is this?
Perfect.
Yeah. It's community theater. That's kind of perfect for it. Oh, Florida. It's in Florida. So
I wonder if this
Orlando,
is like
Florida.
Approved, or if they're just like, hey, we're going to assume no one's going to sue us.
Let's see. Drop Dead Gorgeous musical. That was just the first thing that came up.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's it. Oh wait, okay. BroadwayWorld.com, 2007. Drop Dead Gorgeous the musical. Okay. Would anybody love to see musical? Okay, so that's just somebody in a message board.
There's a Facebook page for it.
Oh yeah. So I suppose that if there was a musical, though, Melissa Manchester would be getting some residuals.
I would only hope so.
Yeah, I mean, it's got some songs. It's got "Can't Take My Eyes Off of You" built into it. It's already got some things baked in. You don't need to write as many new numbers for it.
No, I mean, whatever. You could do a jukebox musical. Hey, yay, late 90s. Throw some friggin' Third Eye Blind in there.
I don't know if that would work, because this movie doesn't take place in a world where people listen to popular music.
No. I'm kidding about that. I don't like the idea. I generally don't like the idea of jukebox musicals.
Okay. You talk about them a lot.
Yeah.
Well, maybe more in jest than out of admiration.
Oh, no. I talk about them more in jest. because I prefer not to ingest jukebox musicals.
Dan.
Ha ha! Yeah.
I want to eject myself from this podcast.
There
Anyway.
are and honestly, the artists whose music I feel like would make jukebox musicals, like, it hasn't been done, or it hasn't been done well. So Tom Petty, there you go. I would see a Tom Petty jukebox musical.
Okay. I'd only want to see Stop Dragging My Heart Around. That's the only one I'd want to see performed live. You know, just some Stevie Nicks type.
Oh, absolutely.
Them wailing at each other.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. So,
Fabulous.
so Dan, your idea is a musical. You want to make that happen.
Yeah, that's what works for me. I don't feel like, we need to go back there. I think, a remake, if anything, just kind of like, a revisionist, a revision of it would be worthwhile. But like, yeah, I wouldn't go, that would kind of, I'd rather do that than a sequel.
Yeah.
But a musical, hey, that could be fun.
So I should also mention that in the Miss Minnesota Teen Pageant in 2018, the winner was from Rosemount. So Peyton Schroeder, congratulations,
Way
you did
to
it.
go, Peyton Schroeder.
And congratulations to the 2023 winner, Michaela Rivers of Maple Grove. You made it happen. Good for you.
You did it, Michaela. You did it. We support you in all of your future endeavors. I will say this, though. If I was going to do this musical, even if it's not a jukebox musical, I would still include the song "The Biggest Ball of Twine in Minnesota."
Well, when you have them coming out wearing their headpieces, and one of them had the ball of twine, she's talking about her relative who has the biggest ball of twine. We love a good biggest ball of twine, and there was a biggest ball of twine podcast. There was a podcast episode in 99% Invisible from 2019. I think that I might have sent it to you, but it's called Goodness Gracious Great Balls of Twine. It is about the world's largest balls of twine and the controversies that lay within, although I don't think any of them are in Minnesota. Oh, maybe one of them is in Minnesota, but there's one in, I think, Texas, one in Kansas, and Darwin twine ball. I think Darwin is in Minnesota, I believe. But
I would love it if no one knew how these twine balls got there. If they were like crop circles.
It's a really great podcast episode, and I remember it. I haven't listened to it since 2019, but I remember it talking a lot about, like, how are they measured? Like, what is it circumference? Is it weight? Because depending on how you're gauging it, you might have two very different results for biggest ball of twine. So it's a highly debated subject. It's very interesting. But large balls of twine is just a thing. That's a thing.
Wow.
Oh, to be alive.
I mean, the fact that they just don't go rolling all over the place, that's kind of more of that flat earth proof, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously the world is flat, and so let's just accept that and move on. So speaking of moving on,
you want to know what we're doing next?
I do want to know what we're doing next. Yeah.
Oh boy, we are going
Mississippi.
south.
Tell me about it.
We're heading down to Mississippi. We are going to be looking at 1967's In the Heat of the Night, directed by the late, great Norman Jewison, starring Sidney Poitier, Rod Steiger, edited by Hal Ashby.
Yeah.
And with a score by Quincy Jones. And this is a classic.
And a song by Ray Charles. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm excited. I've actually never seen this one.
I've seen it once, and I'm looking forward to watching it. It's a good watch.
There's a lot of great Mississippi movies out there, but this one is streaming, so we're gonna watch it.
Yes, and excellent movie and great movie to talk about when we're talking about Mississippi. So
sure.
You know what we're gonna be getting a little bit of? One of our favorite things, a little bit of Sweaty Law.
Oh, Sweaty Law. Wonderful. There's a, did you ever I don't know if I ever sent you any videos from them, but the sketch comedy group, the Birthday Boys, now they don't exist. Some of them are actually the Sloppy Boys that have a great podcast. And then there's the Doughboys, another great podcast.
Yes.
But the Birthday Boys, they had a show on IFC for 2 seasons. Bob Odenkirk was executive producer and was also in it. And I've been rewatching it. And they were my favorite sketch group when I was living in LA. I remember seeing them at UCB all the time. And then like I saw them and I was like, oh my God, these guys are the funniest people I've ever seen in my life. And they have this one sketch. I couldn't find it online because I wanted to send it to you, Dan, but it is, it's all about sweaty Southern courtrooms. It's more of a back in the day sweaty and not so much Grisham times, but
no. Like To Kill a Mockingbird, like exactly. 12 Angry Men, not 12 Angry Men. Oh geez, what's the one with the monkey trial?
Inherit the Wind.
Thank you. I'm like, I knew we did it,
which we covered on this podcast.
Yes, and it was very sweaty. So
yeah, but we love our sweaty law.
I think I saw that sketch because an image is coming straight to my mind.
Okay. It's good. Yes. So everybody, please email us ruinedchildhoodspod@gmail.com. Check out ruinedchildhoodspod.com for some more information. Also check out the link in our profile or the link in this episode's description for our link tree, and you'll be able to find lots of really cool stuff on there. And check out thewalt.substack.com. And well, Dan, as you are headed to the airport Hojo, I wish you a good journey.
Oh, the Howard Johnson's by the airport. Good journey.